Namaskar and welcome to this another session of Sattology, debunking mythology. We have a very prominent guest from India today, and some of you may know him, but he has had a very unique academic transition from being a highly left oriented person to the mainstream. And as I say all the time, that the left wing and the right wing doesn't apply in democracies because democracies elect their representatives. And so there are no more the kings whose diktat was the final one. There's usually a representative democracy where a group elects a leader. So the left or the right wing cannot exist in a democracy in a way. This term was particularly invented in France and where the monarch was so people who were in favor of the monarch were considered right wing, and people who opposed monarch were on the left wing. And in their parliament house, they used to sit on the left or the right, facing the chair of the speaker or the king. So this is how the left and the right wing came. The people who opposed the monarch sat on the left, facing the king. People who were in favor of the monarch sat on the right side, facing the king. That's why it's called bicameral legislature. And that's the origin of left and the right wing. But in today, we have in US we have Democrats and Republicans. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle they sit, or maybe there is a position there. But when you look at the Speaker of the House or the President, then all of them are elected reps. So naturally, people who do not have not favored for voting for the king or something will be, all of them will be left, not just one. And people who voted for the government will be on the right. So the concept of left and right wing is not applicable in a democracy. Now, without delay, I would like to welcome this special guest. He is a professor and he has written many books and he is very vocal about what he does now. And let us all hear him. And without delay, I'd like to welcome Professor C P Singh from India. Namaskar.
नमस्कार।
So, अगर कुछ मैंने गलती किया है इंट्रोडक्शन में तो प्लीज फॉरगिव अस।
नहीं, इस तरह के विषय प्रवेश में कोई गलती हो नहीं सकती है, क्योंकि हम लोग सांस्कृतिक रूप से सही और गलत वाले नहीं हैं। हम लोग सांस्कृतिक रूप से खोजी हैं, शोधक हैं, सत्य को हम लोग खोजते हैं। So if you make mistakes, these mistakes are not for the sake of mistakes. These mistakes are committed when you are on way to searching for a truth. So search for truth itself is much more important rather than committing those mistakes. In fact, the reality is, until unless you commit some mistakes, how will you reach the truth? Reaching truth has a cost, and the cost is that you commit mistakes, and while committing mistakes, you learn about the truth, you get closer to the truth. In that sense, committing mistakes or getting wrong something is just other side of the coin of search for truth. So as inheritors of Indian tradition, as inheritors of the tradition called Sanatan or Hindu, we are as much global as we are local. We have always been for everything that is good anywhere, and this also includes that while doing anything, to reach the truth, you take certain risks, and when you take some intellectual or moral or other risks, you definitely tend to commit certain mistakes, because you cannot claim to be all-knowing. You cannot claim to be omniscient or omnipresent. That sentence itself is something that doesn't belong to us culturally. We are a people who mistake in the kind of introduction that you gave about me. and we were about to conclude that committing mistakes is part of the search for truth, and that is integrally connected, and that is not to be disdained in the kind of culture that we inherit. That is, in fact, celebrated if the mistakes are not committed by design. So we have to continue it by way of question answer, or what to do, or should I pick
Yeah,
up some issue and talk about it?
yeah. You continue. This is live going on right now.
All right. So maybe as far as I have been able to understand from the kind of introduction you gave about me, you might be interested in my journey from being a hardcore communist for more than 15 years in my university days, and even 4 or 5 years after I left the university, I was into the job, and how I became a Hindu again. I was born a Hindu, then I became a communist in 1982 when I was uh, in the first year of my university. Some Communist Party students and leaders got in touch with me, and I fell for the kind of ideology they presented, and the lines which flowed me were from each according to his capacity and to each according to his need. That was something I had never heard, I had never thought of. And from 1982 to 1998, I remained a communist. And when I came from Patna University to Delhi University, I also fought Central Council elections, and I lost just by one vote. And that was again as member of All India Student Federation, that is the student wing of the Communist Party of India, which is the oldest communist party in India, and that was established in December uh, 1925. There was a conference held in Kanpur on 25th, 26th, and 27th of December 1925, and the Communist Party was established. And in between, while doing my job as a journalist, I had certain encounters that created doubts. I was the story director of a television program called Kashmir Fine. And the Kashmir File was aired on Doordarshan, that was between 1995 and 1997. And it was also aired on DD CNN International. Those days, CNN International had entered into a partial partnership with Doordarshan. And we didn't have any 24-hour news channel. So most of the things that we had was only on Doordarshan. It was a monopoly in the field of television news or television. So while doing that program, and it was focused on Kashmir, the events in Kashmir, and you might recall that in early 90s, beginning January 1990, the Hindus of Kashmir suffered ethnic cleansing. Hundreds of them were massacred, thousands of them were raped, and lakhs of them were forced to leave their home and earth. They could barely save their lives just because they were Hindus. Every day from the pulpit of the mosque, there would be an announcement that we want only the ladies, the girls of Pandits. The rest of them should either leave or be ready to get killed or embrace Islam. That was in late 80s and early 90s, and that is how Kashmiri Hindus were made to flee. And I was the story director of that program. And there was not much of a competition as you have these days in television news or current affairs programming. And I had to do a lot of research, and I was indirectly told by my producer, who was a famous filmmaker of the new wave cinema, Arun Kaul, who also was a Kashmiri, and that I did not dig the present facts. So I was supposed to tell the present dichotomy or the present truth of Kashmir by getting into the ancient Kashmir or the medieval Kashmir, because in the present Kashmir there was nothing that could be praised about Muslims or Islam, because Hindus were being persecuted just because they were Hindus. And the television program, which was of half an hour duration, had to be previewed by one official from the Ministry of Home, another official from the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, before it was finally aired. And the Home Ministry officials and INB Ministry officials, they all worked as if they were the agents. They stopped us from telling the truth, because whatever truth belonged to those days, it was actually about the agony, the pain of Hindus and the tyranny of their neighboring Muslims. So I was not able to decode the kind of oxymoronity that what was being done those days in terms of concepts. But as a young man, as someone who was a television professional, who was working for the program, for the concepts, for the script and everything that went behind the scene, behind the screen, this was a question which was lingering in my mind even after I had left that program in mid-1997. And by the providence of nature or God, if you wish, I was supposed to see a program that was about Vivekanand Kendra. That Vivekanand Kendra was established in memory of our great saint Vivekananda, who is known in America amongst the people who are spiritual in nature or who have certain connections with theology, for his speech that he had made in 1893 in Chicago. For his Chicago his speech is widely known. So that center was dedicated to Vivekananda. And they were working for the restoration of local faith in northeast part of India, that is Arunachal Pradesh. And they were through the primary schools and middle schools trying to educate the children of the local tribes without converting them to any other faith, because Christianity was making inroads into them, and Christianity was about to destroy their stories, their characters, their belief systems that were integrally connected to the nature and to the conditions there. And that I enjoyed. But when I looked at the script, which had already been made, I was aghast. It was done by some proper, I think, with some proper leftist or secular mindset. So anything that was good about inclusive character of the Indian culture, Indian tradition, that was not articulated properly. So I took another 2 to 3 weeks to have a look at the raw footage that was into hundreds of hours of shooting, and I prepared the script. And the title of the script was Sanskriti or Vikas Saath Saath. Development and culture go hand in hand. While doing so, I had to work a lot on the choice of my words, because they pertain to Arunachal Pradesh. And Arunachal Pradesh was and continues to be in many ways topographically on the margins. So many things that I came to know about their deities were not what I had known about them uh, since my childhood. So these are the two, I would say, milestones. One was working with Kashmir Fine, and the other was redoing a script.
See,
Uh,
one of
uh,
the yes. So one of the hallmarks of the leftist ideology or the Islamic ideology or any of these ideologies, and even Christian to a large extent, are based on lies and forced beliefs. Uh, like somebody has to believe. This is my question is usually why do we believe in something when we can actually see it or we can experience it? So you can learn from somebody's experience by either seeing through your own eyes or hearing through your ears or actually experiencing it by yourself. Then why do we have to believe in something which may not be? Like for example, you touch on many topics. Through our eyes we can see the reality that people are displaced, and through our ears we can hear them crying, talking about it, and actually we can. So there is a big difference between blind belief and actual experience. So, would you like to touch upon it? Because I feel that the left is based on just belief, may not be true, and also forced belief, which may not even exist. Like nowadays, even the scientists are questioning whether a person like Gabriel is a mental imagination or it just exists or what it is. But if you look at the history, then the Moses also had the same dream. And is it a coincidence? I do not know that. Moses also had the same dream, and nobody knows whether Moses actually exists. What he opposed in Egypt, whether he exists or not. But we have been forced to believe that is true. But we have been forced to also reject all the archaeological evidences of Ramayana, all the archaeological evidences of Mahabharata everywhere. So it's a forced belief versus experience, and that's what I want to say. That what do you see? What is your opinion on this?
Thank you very much for this question. This question is no less than revisiting almost every major experience that I have had with communism or Islam or Christianity. Uh, I'll try to answer it in a very commonsensical manner through using a management principle. In management, there is a principle they call it 80-20 principle. 80-20 principle means that 20% of the people are the people who add real value. 80% of the people are the people who somehow manage to live off what these 20% people contribute. And that contribution is not only in terms of economy, it almost pertains to every walk of life. Now, if you extend this, not extend, let me call it, if you interpolate this 80-20 principle to the latest faith or the belief system, that is communism, that happened in the mid 19th century. What is that? They tell you that there, in the system of capitalism, there are two broad classes. One is that of bourgeoisie, and second is that of proletariat. And the proletariat have been exploited by the bourgeoisie, and that is why bourgeoisies are so affluent. That is why bourgeoisie are living an exuberant life, and all the reasons and the causes of the ooze of proletariat, or the bad conditions or the pathetic conditions of proletariat, have to do nothing with the proletariat's own doing, but the success of bourgeoisie is the region of the failure of proletariat. Let's put it in a very commonsensical language. Now come to the percentage principle. Those who contribute, those who excel, those who are entrepreneurs, intellectual entrepreneurs, economic entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, political entrepreneurs, or cultural entrepreneurs, they together would not constitute more than 20%. Those who contribute excellence in the society are not many number, and that is a global experience. We don't need to read a book or even a research paper to verify. We can see it all around. The examples abound around us. So the bourgeoisie, which constituted not more than 20% that were successful, they were held responsible for the pathetic conditions of the proletariat, and that is why proletariat were said, and this is psychologically very, very appealing. If I am not able to do well in my examination, I have two ways. I can blame myself because I didn't prepare well, or I can blame the teacher, I can blame my parents, I can blame the society, I can pick up anybody's name and blame them. That is the logic, that success becomes the reason for the failure of those who failed, who did not succeed. So proletariat were made to believe. We are coming to the definition of belief. Proletariat were made to believe that the people who are successful around you, they are the people because of whom you are suffering. It is psychologically an excellent proposition to buy, to go for it, that I am successful because somebody is not successful. I am a failure. I have failed in my life because somebody has not allowed me to succeed. That is the psychological strain. That is the psychological basis of Judaism. That is the psychological basis of Christianity. That is the psychological basis of Islam. And that is the psychological basis of communism. And we can have some circumstantial data to prove it. There is one American professor, I'm forgetting the university, the name of the university in which he worked, but you can Google and find his name. He is Professor Bill Warner. Professor Bill Warner was earlier associated with physics. Later on, maybe after retirement or at the end of his career, he started working in the domain of history, particularly the history of religion. And as a scientist, he did some quantitative research on the connections between violence and religion. And that he has calculated, or if not calculated, let's put it, he has made an intelligent scientific estimate that after the coming of Islam, more than 200 were genocided, and of those more than 270 million, more than 100 million were Indians. And when we say Indians, mostly they were unbelievers, they were worshippers, they were kuffar or kafirs, who were mostly idolaters, who engaged in the worshipping of idols. So when you say that something which can be seen, with naked eyes. How people can afford to ignore them? And something which is not supported by evidence, something which is not supported by logic, something which is not supported by data, are lapped up by the people. Who are the people who lap it up? Ask this question and you will see. Those people who lap this concept are the people who are shirkers, who do not contribute in the society, who do not add value to the economy. Just do a survey among the communists or leftists of America, and you will find that more than 70% of them are living off the earning of their parents or the inherited estate. That is a global study. Most communist intellectuals are not earning their livings. They are the people who are living off the earnings either of the parents or the estate they inherited, or something called propaganda through which they are earning. They are not adding value. They are not doing work, something you can call academic. Because in academia, or any kind of research for that matter, any kind of inquiry, you have to move from the narrative-led data gathering to data-led narrative making. Most leftists, most communists, most evangelists, most jihadis, they are all about narrative-led data gathering. First, they decide what is correct or incorrect, and then they pick up, cherry pick data to suit their conclusion. As opposed to that, scientific inquiry may start with an hypothesis which is wrong, which might be proven null at the end of the study or research, but they will not fudge with the process of data collection. They will go by what the data dictate rather than dictating the data to say what they want to. So this difference between belief and seeing, belief and research, belief and inquiry is that there is always the number of people in any culture, any civilization, any society, those who do not work, those who do not add much to the society in any way, their number is always more than those who are actually adding value. Muhammad, remember Muhammad, when he established Islam, and after 10 years of unsuccessful stint as a prophet, he moved from Mecca to Medina. The first thing he did was he started looting the caravan of Meccans. Point number one. Point number two, within 2 to 3 years of his exile from Mecca to Medina, he said that 80% of the loot will go to the looters and 20% of the loot will come to the commander of the loot. Now tell me honestly, Satyamji, if you were there in Medina in 7th century, 6th to be exact, 624 AD, which one will you go for? Which will be your major incentive? Contributing value to the society or looting the people who were contributing to the society? Now 15 to 20% of the people were contributing. 80% of the loot was being given to the looters. So it became a good business to become a follower of the prophet or follower of the new religion, because it brought you immediate material benefits. Not only that, to add fuel to the fire, he said, anything that comes with the loot, that is women, children, or the people who have surrendered, they all are Male Ganimat. Male Ganimat is an Arabic phrase. It means something that it has come to you by the grace of God in the form of loot. So loot included men, women, children, as well as those who were the fighters and had surrendered. So your immoral acts of having a sex slave or marrying someone or having sex by force with someone whose husband had been killed or enslaved was made a religious act, was given religious sanctity. So a crime was being given religious sanctity. The crime in terms of economic loot, the crime in terms of committing moral atrocities on the body of the defeated or their children. So this belief was very rewarding. The reality was not rewarding. The data, the real data about life was not rewarding. The belief was rewarding because the belief was making you rich, not through working, but through looting. That applies to communism. That is why, if you look at them in terms of certain concepts, these concepts are very, very similar, which explain their acts.
So, thank you, Professor C.P. Singh ji, for a wonderful time today, and few points that you touched really good, the really detailed in terms of the difference between the belief and the reality. And I think most of our viewers will understand from this discussion is what is a propaganda versus what is facts. And sometimes we have to believe in the experience of our eyes and through our ears and through our senses more than what we read in the articles and what we read. So sometimes these people, they appear very, very credible. Like you also said, they appear very credible, but they are not, because if you do a little bit more research, then the background comes out. So in today's world of fake news media and highly propagandized media outlets, it's important to do our own research and come to a conclusion. At Sattology, we are always debunking mythology, and that is a myth. The leftist propaganda is a myth, and sometimes these leftist liberals, they are the face of Islamists and other terrorist forces who are just there with a mission to spread disinformation. So I'll stop here and keep watching it. And namaskar, C P Singh ji, for a wonderful
Thank you
time.
very much for connecting.
And we'll invite you again for another session
Thank you.
in more detail. And so thank you all, and have a nice day.
And thank you for the wonderful question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.